So one day I was sat in a store reading this book right here, The Crossroads of Twilight by Robert Jordan. And somebody walked by while I was reading it, and he glanced down. I was sat in it's a shoe store, so I was sat in one of the chairs where you can try on the shoes reading. And he kind of is walking in front of me, and he looked down at my book, and he looks at his friend. He kind of nudged his friend. He said, "Hey, that's a big book." And the way he said it was kind of like he's putting it down, like, well, is he reading a big book? And I've heard that many times since I've been reading in public. And every time I think, why do they say it like it's a bad thing? But I think I've figured it out. People think reading is boring and that you can gain nothing from it. But I disagree. I say reading teaches you life lessons about the present, either from the present or life lessons about the present from the past. So, I'm an English major who has studied a few books and has read quite a few, and today I will persuade you to read more. So today we're going to cover why you should read more, why it's important to read more, what will happen when you do, and how you can go about it. So here's the problem that I see, why it's important in a few ways that you can go, and what's going to happen if you don't. So the problem is people don't really take reading all that seriously. They tend to look down on it, or think it's boring, or think reading's not for them. So why it's important is because reading gives you a look into the past. It will teach you about yourself and about the present now and problems going on in the modern day world by looking at problems going on in the past. It'll also show you how people spent their days, what stories they told to entertain themselves. We have comic books and movies about superheroes. Well, they had poems, epic poems written about what have you. They have Virgil talking about the Aeneid, with Aeneas leaving the Battle of Troy and sailing off to start the founding of Rome. They have the story of the Odyssey about a man leaving the Trojan War. So you get to learn how they entertained themselves, and those stories are still entertaining today. If you don't read, you're going to lose out on learning something new or missing an experience, a one-of-a-kind experience even. So here is some steps you can take to kind of read a little more. First off is finding a book that interests you. There are countless thousands of books in this world. There's a lot. So finding one that interests you is always the first step. You can't just pick up a book that I like because you might not like that book, which is completely fine. We don't have to like the same things. So the easiest way to find books that you like is to Google them. Just search for them. Search what you're interested in, the type of story you're interested in, and go to Google. They'll show you a whole bunch. There's booktubers, is what they're called on YouTube. So you can go and look for the likes of, there's one that I like called Daniel Green. Go out, watch him. He does book reviews. You can see all those to see if there's any story-driven books that you like. Or you can just look up types of crafts or outdoors or whatever you're interested in. Another very hands-on way, is to go to your local library. Go to the local library, look around, talk to your librarian, and see what they think. Tell them your interest. Because if you tell them your interest, they can help you find the perfect book. So, beyond all that, say you get back and you still can't really get into it. Think about why. Why can't you? The biggest problem that I have heard, the biggest complaint is people think, or they just don't want to sit down and kind of tunnel vision into this book and just enjoy it. They can't, which is fine. We have audiobooks. Audiobooks are great. You can download them and listen to them. without any kind of service or Wi-Fi needed, and they're great for long drives or for just doing chores while going around the house, cleaning house. You can listen to audiobooks, which is great. So, here's how things are going to look if you do start taking some of these steps. So, this is going to be one of the most obvious things you have heard all night. What's going to happen if you read more books? You've read more books. It's very simple. But what is so good about that is that it gives you this sense of accomplishment. So, if you decide to read one new book that you haven't read before, that's one thing you hadn't done before that you've done now. And if you read 2 new books, that's 2 things you hadn't done before. So to see that number keep ticking up and to keep saying, wow, I've read 10 books, it feels really good. You will more than likely have learned a new thing. You're either going to learn a new skill, you're either going to learn a new, anything. You're going to learn a new fact about history, about present day, about the past, anything. And that's going to feel good too. The best part about reading is, in reading more, there's really not a downside. You can't really find a negative in reading more. Because even if you don't get into reading and you don't read anymore, well, you tried. And that's a good thing. Because you might have still learned something in what little you did get to. So you should read more. In conclusion, reading is a great way to learn new things about here and now or about the past. So, again, you should read more. And all of that is why reading is important.